That's right, Potato. It is your time to shine because today we are making homemade pierogi. A few of my potatoes had decided to grow some eyes, but that's okay because we're going to start by peeling that flesh right off. Now, I'm not normally one to peel a potato. In fact, it is one of my least favorite tasks in the kitchen to do. However, for this filling in a pierogi, I believe that it should be necessary. Once you peel the potatoes and cut them into decent-sized chunks, give them a good rinse, fill them with some nice fresh water, and salt that water. Boil those taters over medium heat until you can.
Stick a fork in me.
They're done. If you've ever read a recipe and it said boil potatoes until they are fork done, it means that you need to stick a fork in them, and if they do not follow the fork out of the pot, the potatoes have been boiled to completion. While I was doing my thumb scrolling research on how to make a pierogi, I found that a lot of people are very passionate about these recipes. Pierogi have very strong roots in Polish, German, and Ukrainian household, and a lot of people who grew up with them being made traditionally in their kitchen by their grandma or their grandpa will argue with you and tell you that you are making them incorrectly. One common thing, however, that I saw in a lot of comment sections of a lot of people's videos was that you do not put egg or anything like that in the dough to make the pierogi. You actually use the leftover potato water instead, which I kind of love because it seems very cost effective. You're not using an extra ingredient, you're just using what you already have. So when you are straining your potatoes after boiling them, do not throw out that potato water. Another frequent comment that I saw popping up a lot in these videos is the use of farmer's cheese inside the filling instead of any kind of cheddar or mozzarella. If I'm being completely honest, I don't think I've ever even had or seen farmer's cheese, but I will for sure be on the lookout the next time I'm, rich enough to actually step foot inside of a grocery store. If you've ever had farmer's cheese, let me know if you like it. Is it salty? Is it sweet? Is it creamy? I think it's supposed to be pretty creamy. That's what I'm gathering from the comment section anyway. In similar fashion to making homemade pasta, you want to make a well in your flour pile on the counter. Add the potato water and then a little bit of oil. Very slowly, tediously, and carefully, you want to go ahead and bring the flour into the middle slowly and meticulously and carefully yet again, because you do not want all of that just pouring out on the side of the counter. This right here, this particular part is, I would say, the most time-consuming part of making pierogi. It did take a little while to get it to the point where I could start kneading it, but it is so worth it, guys. And it's not hard. It's just slightly time consuming. And we've got some time. You can put some love into your food tonight. And actually, the best part about making pierogi is that you can, and I plan to double, maybe even triple this recipe next time I make it, because these freeze so well. All you got to do is lay them out on a cookie sheet on some sort of parchment paper or a silicone mat so they don't stick. Stick them in the freezer to give them a good freeze. And once they are solid and frozen and you can pick them up off the tray, stick them in a Ziploc bag, and they are so easy to just grab and make for dinner. So double and triple this recipe and freeze them. So you put all this love in one day and you may have 5 to 6 days worth of pierogi for dinner. Even though a lot of people feel that their recipe is the right and only way to make pierogi, I feel we are in a time of life right now where we need to compromise on what it is that we are making and work with what it is that we already have in our kitchen. Which is why I love the idea of using the potato water instead of eggs. If I didn't have eggs, I could still make this recipe, and that just brings me joy. Potatoes are also a great base to add any flavor to that you like. Add some bacon, put some onions in there, put some different cheeses, different seasonings, honestly, garlic, whatever it is that you like. At the end of the day, it is your kitchen, it is you who is making it, and it is you and your family who is eating it. So even if it is not the quote-unquote traditional way or the quote-unquote right way to make pierogi, pierogi. It is your way, and you are going to find your way, and you are going to figure out what your family wants to eat, because at the end of the day, if they don't eat it, if they don't like it, who cares if it's freaking traditional? I don't care. Nobody cares. Once you get your hands messy and you get that dough kneaded to a nice, smooth, bouncy ball, you want to wrap it really tightly and let it sit. You want to give all that flour time to really absorb all of that moisture and become a really great, stretchy dough. Once the dough has rested and you've wiped your counter clean, you can go ahead and unwrap it. And I like to divide this dough into 4. Of course, if you double, triple this recipe, you'll probably want to divide it accordingly. This type of dough, just like pasta, does tend to develop a crust really quickly, so make sure that you rewrap whatever section of the dough you are not currently using. And make sure that you do work in small batches, because if you try to work with too much dough at once, you're probably going to end up with a lot of cracking and breaking, and that's obviously not what we want. This part of pierogi making is also something that I've seen done multiple different ways, and actually heard that my husband's great-grandmother, who was born in Ukraine, he remembers spending time in her kitchen, watching her and helping her make pierogi when he was a kid. And he told me that she likes to use a spoon to use a thicker piece of pierogi dough and kind of press the spoon in to make almost like a dent, then filled it and stretched the dough around it. My husband also recently gave his mother a call and asked if she had any of the traditional recipes on hand that his great-grandmother used, and she says that she does. So I'm very excited to get my hand on those, and I will definitely pass it along when it is that I get more information on how it is that she made it, and I cannot wait to try and see if I can replicate that flavor from his childhood. Also, during my thumb scrolling research, I saw many different ways to create the pierogi outside and many different ways to crimp the edges. This is my very first pierogi that I made.
Well done.
Aw, thanks, Leonard. On a lot of the videos that I watched, a lot of people I saw were rolling out the dough and using a circular cookie cutter or a glass to create the circles for the pierogis, or making it the way that I did, by creating a snake and cutting it into discs before rolling them flat. I don't have a whole lot of counter space, so doing it this way for me made a lot of sense. Also, I'm not really sure if it makes any difference here, but I know for a lot of other types of recipes that work with dough that need to be rolled out, the less you work with the dough, the better it ends up. So for me, this seemed like the natural decision and way to go. With this recipe and the amount that I made, I ended up making a total of 48 pierogi. Quick side note, the only thing more passionately spoken in these comment sections of the videos I saw, other than using potato water, is that there is no S at the end of pierogi. Apparently, pierogi itself is plural, and will be corrected if said incorrectly. You may have noticed in my first few pierogi I used 2 scoops, which actually ended up being too much. Not only did that leave me with a potato filling shortage for my last few pierogi, which means I only ended up making 46 instead of 48, using 2 scoops of filling ended up stuffing them way too much anyway, and they did pop a little bit when they were being cooked. So, using this 1.5 tablespoon sized cookie scoop was the exact amount of filling that you need to make the perfect pierogi. I also experimented with different ways to crimp the edges to make sure nothing comes out, and I found the fork technique to be my favorite, as it created a really nice crispy texture after frying the pierogi. I would like to take this moment to point out that these are the last clips right here that my camera ever took before falling from this angle to its untimely demise.
Moment of silence.
Goodbye, dear camera. You will hopefully be replaced, but never forgotten. I did my best to capture the rest of the process with my phone, but I was so frustrated with myself after breaking my camera that I didn't really do the best. I apologize. However, cooking the pierogi is actually the easiest part. All you have to do is boil some water and boil them till they float, then fry them in some butter till crispy on either side. Top them with some fried onions and a little sour cream if you have it. I didn't, but it is so good and so worth getting. And that's it. I cannot wait to make a million more of these. I hope you do too. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.